Okay. Tonight, Baruch Hashem, we're starting a new series. It's a new beginning about Kohelet. This one will take us also several months, B'ezrat Hashem. A very important book. In English, it's called Ecclesiastes. Tonight will be an introduction. And B'ezrat Hashem, what will follow are the various chapters in this very important sefer. The way this all begins, for those of you who have learned a little bit of Jewish history, is that Shlomo Melech, the son of David, took over the Malchut, took over the reign at a very young age. He was about 13 years old, bar mitzvah. What does a young boy know at age 13? Many of us who are much older do not even know what there is to know in this world, in life. And he at this tender age, of course, was inexperienced, not so knowledgeable, but I'm sure excited somewhat with this new responsibility of being the king. And he has a dream, a very interesting dream, a fascinating dream, where Hashem asks him, tell me what your wish is. Whatever you want, I'll give you. Isn't that nice? If you were to offer it, what would you ask? And Shlomo Melech, of course, in his dream says, I'm very thankful for everything that you have given David, my father, a son that should be able to continue with this very important mission of leadership of Am Yisrael. I do not ask for wealth. I do not ask for all these earthly acquisitions. All I ask is for chokhmah, for knowledge. I want to know, I want to understand things. I want to know them very well. And Hashem tells him, I was very good that you asked for chokhmah, and since you did not ask for wealth and for all of the earthly acquisitions, you will have everything anyway. Because it is through chokhmah that you could eventually accomplish so much and have everything you ever dreamed of. Chokhmah, therefore, is the most important thing that we can acquire in this lifetime. And as soon as he got up from his dream, he was already able to understand the chirping of the birds. He was already able to understand the noises that the donkey was making. In other words, the dream came true right away. He was already endowed with an incredible chokhmah that no other human being ever had. The chokhmah of Shlomo Melech. He pretty much knew almost everything there is to know. As a result of this, he made a mishteh. He threw a big party, a very, very big party. But what was this party for? It's not a party where many people get drunk and just enjoy themselves. A party in Judaism is supposed to be a seudah shel mitzvah. It's supposed to be a meal that involves some sort of mitzvah. And here, this is a true hodaya Hashem, a true party of thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Almighty, for giving him, of course, the privilege of being the next king and giving him this beautiful and most precious gift called chokhmah. As a result of this chokhmah, he also was endowed with Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. And it is through divine inspiration and through his chokhmah that he composed the sefarim of Mishlei, Shir HaShirim, and Kohelet. Mishlei, for those of you who remember, we've covered many, many months worth, or actually I think it went almost to 2 years, because we went through all the chapters of this very interesting book called Mishlei, or Proverbs in English. Shir HaShirim and Kohelet. What's the difference between the three books? Mishlei covers more midot, character, refinement of character, how to conduct oneself in life, human nature. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, is a very holy book. It covers the relationship between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In Kohelet, which some say, by the way, that he put together at the end of his life, even though it was a short life, he lived to the age of 52. By that time, he was definitely much more experienced. He had, of course, acquired even more knowledge. And he was able to write Kohelet, which deals more with Chokhmat Chaim, with the wisdom about life, knowledge about life, what we should learn. I'm sure many people who are in their 40s or 50s are thinking at least to themselves, I wish I can do it all over again, based on what I know now. If people knew what they know at the age of 50 or 60, when they were just starting out life 20 or so, hopefully they would have made less mistakes. Because life is a teacher. It should be, at least. There are some people who never learn anyway. I'm not talking about those. Yeah, there are those who never learn. But most normal people are willing to learn. Hopefully are willing to learn from their mistakes so that those mistakes are not repeated. So Kohelet is an incredible sefer, and I think it's worth learning it in depth, so that we should not make the mistakes, the many mistakes that other people make. The reason for this sefer, the reason for writing these books, is a lesson in itself. Shlomo Melech is sharing with us his knowledge. He's teaching knowledge, and his name here is not Shlomo. His name is Kohelet. That's the way he is called. Al shehikhil et Israel. He's gathering the Jewish people for classes, which is what we're doing here, to instruct them, to teach them, as we are called, the nation of the book. We cannot part from this book. We cannot part from these instructions, from this knowledge base. Because Kiyem Hayenu ve'orech yaminu, our whole life depends on this. If one wants to live a life of happiness, a life of satisfaction, a life of meaning, then he has to understand what life is all about to begin with. So therefore, in writing this book, he's telling us how to live life. And that's the greatest chokhmah of all. There's other chokhmot. There's the chokhmah of engineering, physics, chemistry, all kinds of chokhmot, as you know today especially, with the advance of science and technology. There's incredible amount of chokhmah and da'at. And the Zohar says so clearly that's exactly what will happen before Mashiach comes. The Zohar even tells us a year, approximate year. The Zohar says in the year 5600 in the 6th millennium. What's the year 5600 in the 6th millennium? The year 1840. So the Zohar pretty much picks a year. 1840 is pretty recent. And the Zohar is being written over 1650 years ago. He says in that year, Sha'arei HaChokhmah will open up, the gates of wisdom will open up. So much knowledge will swamp the earth. And what do we see from that year? Approximately 1840, the Industrial Revolution, year after year, generation after generation, incredible advances that the world has not seen for thousands of years. Here and there, you saw one or two inventions. The printing press was one of the most recent ones in the late 1400s. Printing press. All of a sudden, everything was the same, primitive. Eyeglasses, gunpowder, the telescope, a better wheel for the carriage maybe, made out of a stronger material that doesn't break as often, all kinds of little things. But all of a sudden comes 1840, like the Zohar says, and the gates of wisdom open up. This is prior to the coming of Mashiach. And it has a little bit to do, believe it or not, Kabbalistically with the Etz HaDa'at. Remember that Etz HaDa'at for those of you who learned Sefer Bereshit? They ate from the forbidden fruit, they were not supposed to eat it. Why not eat it? What's wrong with eating that fruit? It's knowledge. Don't eat it before I tell you to eat it. You will only eat it when I tell you to. See, people are curious, especially the women. They're more curious than the men. Yeah, you see that very much in the beginning. What does it taste like? Why can't I have it? Anyway, it's a da'at, the tree of knowledge. Knowledge can be dangerous to you. If you don't have a guide, you don't have somebody to teach you, to instruct you how to use it, when to use it, it could be dangerous, but it's valuable. There's no doubt about it. It's very valuable. And in life will make a big difference whether we have knowledge or we don't have knowledge. So, this Etz HaDat apparently is only coming to fruition. It's only coming about, we're only tasting from it truly in the year 1840 till now. Some dot. You bought a computer 3 years ago, forget it. It's outdated. Things are advancing at a rapid pace. Tremendous amount of knowledge today, ever since, right before Mashiach comes. And you haven't seen anything yet. Tipa min hayam, like they say in Hebrew. This is a drop in the bucket of the chokhmah and the knowledge that we will have when Mashiach comes. Kamayim layam mechasim, the prophet says. It will be like the waters covering the oceans. Tremendous amount of chokhmah. Today at the press, today we're used to digital thing. We press a button, and you see instant reaction to pressing buttons. Do you know that you don't really have to press buttons to do? I don't know how much of you are familiar with voice technology. A pilot doesn't have to press any buttons anymore. He talks to the screen. He talks to the computer. Just talking. And his command is done. A missile is shot. The plane lands. The plane takes off. Just with voice. What's going on? And everything is wireless too. There's no chutim. There are no strings. Nothing. No cables. So there's no doubt that people who are paying attention to all of this, not everybody is, there's an incredible amount of data, an incredible amount of chokhmah in this world that did not exist before. It did exist, but people were not aware of it. Shlomo was aware. Shlomo was aware of certain things that we're still not aware of today. Imagine if you understood what the crow is crowing about every morning. Yeah, the birds, right? There's a lot of chokhmah that he knew that we don't have today. And all of this is valuable. And the importance, therefore, of all this chokhmah is for what? Why is he teaching it to us? Because he says, this is worth your time. This is worth your time because this will teach you how to live. This will teach you how to live, what life is all about, and this will teach you how to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, how to recognize God and what He expects of you in this world. Without this knowledge base, without chokhmah, without learning, we're pretty much on our own. And even though, Baruch Hashem, we have mental faculties that enable us to use common sense, which is a very big tool, common sense and logic, to understand basics, it's always going to be only basics. What if we have doubts and we have questions? The common sense may not be able to help us. So the moach, the brain, the common sense which comes by way of our soul is definitely something very powerful. It's definitely something that all of humanity has, the human race, that enables them to understand the basics. And they can't say, oh, I didn't know that it's forbidden to kill. Because you don't need a Torah for that. For certain commandments, you don't need Torah, you don't need instructions. Common sense dictates so. The rabbi tells, had you not had Torah, you would know certain things by common sense, by virtue of your neshama. Your soul is divine. Your soul is not selfish. Your soul is unselfish. It's pure. It's spiritual. It has pretty much a sense of what it wants to accomplish. You don't let it. The soul being caged in a physical body is somewhat restricted. And that is the continuous conflict between what we call the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, the evil inclination and the positive inclination. But we still have that ability to make decisions and to know the difference between right and wrong on a basic level, on an elementary level. So there's no doubt that Sefer, Kohelet, along with other Sefarim, if they are learned, will add a tremendous dimension to our life. It will give us a completely different perspective of what life is all about, which is very important. Let me tell you why this perspective is important. As much as a person learns chokhmah, as much as he becomes very knowledgeable, and there's some people who are geniuses, they learn all these books, they know it by heart. Chokhmah is only valuable if you put it to use properly. If you don't put it to use, if you don't practice what you preach, if you don't do something with all the learning that you have, it's worthless. So in order for us to put this to use, we have to appreciate it. We have to really know what the value of it is. And in teaching us Kohelet, in teaching us these words of wisdom, Shlomo Melech is basically telling us a very important idea. This is where you should spend time. This is where your efforts should go towards. Lilmod, Chochmat Chaim, to learn the wisdom of life. This will give you tremendous benefit in life. But you have to apply yourself. You have to learn it. You can't just assume that it will come by itself like it came to Shlomo. We actually have to learn it. Now I'm going to surprise you. For those of you who went to high school in America, you may hear, by hearing the following words, it may sound familiar to you. Those of you who were not born here, you may not know what it is, but maybe you've heard it somewhere. And I have to admit, myself, even though I was a few years in America of school, I did go to high school in America, and I did come across this. At the time we're teenagers, we don't understand what we're learning, especially if we don't like the subject. Let's get this over with, you know? If it's not your favorite subject, you're not going to focus a lot on this. And as I'm going through this information that I'm going to share with you, I realize some very interesting ideas that really apply to what we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm not going to tell you where it comes from, I'm going to let you guess. Then I'll tell you if you don't know. Okay, listen carefully. It's in English. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Anybody know yet?
Declaration of Independence.
Oh, wow, okay. You were listening.
I'm a history major.
Okay, that explains it, yeah. Yeah. We hold, see, I only said a few words and you already knew.
Also an English literature major.
Yeah, it's the Declaration of Independence. We hold, listen carefully to the words, they're very nice words. There's a lot of truth to these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident. What does that mean? That they're self-evident, that it means that everybody should be maskim, should be in full agreement with them. It's pashut. That all men are created equal. Why is that? Some people were slaves back then. What do you mean all men are created equal? Yeah, he's referring to what the Torah says, that all men are created in the image of God. There's no such thing as a better man or a worse man in the eyes of Hashem, of course, when he creates them. It's, of course, up to man to what he does with himself. Later on, he can be a bad individual. But in creating, all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Hashem gave everybody certain rights. And what are those rights? Some of them, that among these are life, liberty, and
pursuit of happiness.
How do you know? Yes, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Beautiful words. Now that I'm reading it at this stage in my life, I really can appreciate it. I make sense of it. I actually pay attention to every word and every comma. Who's writing this? Anybody know?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. He was a smart man. There is a whole discussion about how he put this together, how he formulated, what was he influenced by? Did he read this? Or did he read that book? Who did he read? Well, these words, the way they're quoted, are not quoted anywhere else. They are similarities, perhaps, but he actually was conveying here, communicating in a few words, what he thought and what he felt. This is not just made up words to make it look nice. This is going to do what? This Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to point out some words later on too, what is it intended for? Okay, go on. What did he intend to do with these words? He intends to explain the actions that they are about to take, the 13 colonies, to sever their ties with the British monarchy. We don't want to have anything to do with you. We want to run things the way we think. Why? Because you were terrible to us. And the Declaration of Independence points out, point by point, how terrible they were. How they did not give them what is so basic, even after they requested. So anyway, so when he proposes these beautiful three things of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, how does he propose that people should get them? Right? These are inalienable rights that people should get. How does he propose that people can acquire them? Government. That the government is the power through which these things can be enabled. A government that can enable you to have all these things. Therefore, since that government did not give it to us, since we were deprived of those things that government should have given it to us, we want to make our own government. And he goes on to explain in beautiful words that that is exactly what people should do. If they're unhappy with their government, make a new government. Kick the old one out and bring a new one in that will provide you these basic needs. However, what has happened since 1776? Look at this country, look at any country you want. Well, let's leave out Scandinavia for now. Because Norway, Denmark, Sweden, they say that the quality of life there is so much better. People are happier there. And actually, I don't know how people are so happy there, because in Finland there's a high degree of suicides. Okay? So even though things are peaceful there, they have no war, they have a very good social system, a healthcare system, and very little crime, then everything appears to be somewhat quiet. The problem over there is the climate. It's cold most of the year. It's dark for many months of the year, depending where you live. So, nowhere is perfect, right? Nevertheless, there's no doubt that that kind of a society has less problems. But are people really, really happy? Not necessarily. There's something missing. So in asking this question for us, for those of us who are living in this country, look at this country. What has happened? Do you know that this country has deteriorated? Now, what do I mean? People are thinking when I say deteriorate economically. No. Besides the economy, the morals, society, the family, divorces, no matter what, whatever you look at, you know that Americans are not getting such high grades as Japanese are getting, as Israelis are getting, as Russians are getting, as many other countries are getting. America is not necessarily all the way on top, maybe on certain subjects, definitely not in geography. Anyway, what's going on? Why things have deteriorated? But besides this deterioration of society, you ask the average individual if he's happy. We talk about the pursuit of happiness, right? Are you happy? Did the government give you what it's supposed to give you? Life, right? Liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all those goodies. Do we have them? No. A lot of people are homeless. They don't have a life. Freedom? No. A lot of people are in jail. And a lot of people do not have that freedom in other ways because they're unemployed. They can't afford certain things. They're not really free. A lot of people work just to pay their taxes. Is that freedom? Pursuit of happiness? Where's the happiness? No happiness. People are sad, depressed. I'm sure a lot of Prozac is being sold this day. Yeah. All kinds. Medications? It's a big business. People are not happy. People are getting divorced a couple weeks after they get married. What's that all about? You just got married. Things went wrong just like that? Yeah. So obviously something is wrong. So I was thinking to myself when I reviewed this Declaration of Independence, hey, wait a minute. What did Thomas Jefferson say when things are wrong? What do? You sever ties with the old system. That's what they did. They severed their ties with their old system. Let's look at what he says. When in the course of human events, and this is really the beginning, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, if it becomes necessary to dissolve, right, to undo the bonds, the connections with another that they were connected to. In other words, if that's what becomes necessary, that's what you do. You sever ties. You make a revolution. And that's what they did. People should be making a revolution. Not the revolution in Egypt today, necessarily. That's too simple. To overthrow this government? Who tells you that the next government will be any better just because it will be democratic? You think you're going to be making more money than before? You think you're going to be happier than before? You think your marriage will be better as a result of a new government? Happiness is not just about money, right? Money doesn't bring happiness. A lot of people have tons of money, they're not happy. So who's telling you that you're going to have those three inalienable rights of a life, of liberty, and pursuit of happiness just because you're going to have another government? But the point is still the same. The point is true. We need to sever the ties of with the old system, with the old way of thinking. So what I'm using, or what I'm doing, is applying this method, or this declaration, this approach, this proposition, to not sever ties with a government, but to sever ties with a system. Because in reality, life is not only about survival. If you want to survive, you can have cereal and milk every morning and you'll survive physically. You don't need steak. You don't even need rice. Now, tell that to a Chinese, and to a Persian, actually. It's going to be very, how do you do without rice? But anyway, you can survive physically with cereal and milk every morning. That's all. You can live to the nice age of 95. Is that life? Physical survival? No, that's not what life is all about. Yeah. Life is more than that. But a lot of people's life today are merukanim mikol tochen. As we say in Hebrew, they are completely empty of any content. There's no content in their life. How do they know there's no content? Because obviously life is about content. It's not just about physical survival. If people are unhappy, even though they have money, something is wrong. People are getting divorced. Something is wrong. Is everybody making the mistake of marrying the wrong person? I don't think so. We've learned many times that marriage is bashert. Marriage is preordained, is predestined for most people. So if Hashem puts two people together, why can't they get along? What's happening? Why are so many people getting divorced? But obviously, people's life are without content, without direction, without knowing what their tachlit, what their mission is. What are they doing here? Why are they alive? What do they live for? And obviously, that's what's causing the problems. See, they don't have the knowledge of what they're here for. So what do you do when things are wrong? Well, do what Thomas Jefferson proposed. Sever your ties with the old system. Sever your ties with the old way of thinking. Perhaps your way of thinking is wrong. And that is where perspective comes in. Hashkafat olam, hashkafat chaim, perspective. It depends on how you look at life. If you look at life properly, you will be happy. You can only be happy if you understood a little bit what's going on. If you don't look at life properly, you're going to be miserable. You can't be miserable. Now, I just want to add that after writing the entire Declaration of Independence, and after Jefferson proposed what they're doing and why they're doing it, he has a punchline that most people forget about. Most Americans, most people are not going to be aware of this punchline. And you know this punchline makes a world of a difference. What's the punchline? Towards the end of the Declaration of Independence, he writes, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence." You remember that? You have a major in history, all right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that part?
Yes, I do.
Well, very good.
Did you know the original seal of the United States was a image of Moshe Rabbeinu splitting the Yam Suf, and it said the death of tyranny is belief in God.
Oh, wow, yeah. Very interesting. But anyway, there's a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. You know what divine providence is? Ashgacha pratit. What does he take it from? These were religious people. The fathers of the Constitution of this country You read what John Adams, the second president of the United States, wrote, what he believed in, and these were very nice people, very nice gentlemen. What he wrote about the Jews too, right? Very interesting personalities, right? So here he's making a very important point, that all of this is worthless unless we firmly believe that we have the protection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's not saying God here. That he put on the penny. In God we trust. All right? Here they're saying something even more than God. Firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. What it means is that without his help, we're helpless. No matter how strong you can be, no matter how much arms you have and how many foot soldiers you may have, without divine providence, without Hashgacha Pratit, you're worthless, you're helpless. Very important idea here. And I believe, as I said in the beginning, they not only wrote these things, they actually believed in that. And that is why Thomas Jefferson and other presidents were very sympathetic of the Jews in various ways they were. Even though he himself, Thomas Jefferson, as much as he was a very knowledgeable, smart individual, very interesting individual, he had some issues with some aspects of Judaism that he had a hard time with understanding why they should be like that. But that's okay. I mean, he had questions. And he didn't have a rabbi to explain to him, what this is all about. And some of his questions are, by the way, answered only through Kabbalah. Not by plain Torah, because he was a knowledgeable man. He read the Torah. He read other, maybe, writings too. So had he had somebody explain to him, he would have had maybe a different perspective about Judaism. Yes?
The Talmud.
Go ahead.
What question did he have?
All kinds of issues with certain aspects of Judaism that didn't make sense to him. How God can be cruel, things like that. Things like that, yeah. Philosophical. More of a philosophical, and even certain commandments of why they should be like that. I don't recall each one right now. Certain points that he brings out, why does it have to be like that? That he has some issues with that. But as a whole, he definitely admired the people and believed that they had certain rights and was definitely sympathetic to them. And look at what they believe. Divine providence. So what do we see so far? That life, if it's lived properly, can make a big difference, as opposed to life that is not lived properly. And whether one lives properly or not will depend a lot on if he learns. Im lomdim, if you learn. If one does not learn, you really have to be such a good-natured, Yelet Tov Yerushalayim, we say in Hebrew. How would you say that in English? A real good-natured sweet pie. Is that what it is? Sweet pie? Yeah. A real nice guy to really be a kind husband, a good father, a solid friend, a good neighbor, just to get along with everybody. You really have to be so nice and just right and proper that you will somewhat deal successfully with human relationship. Whether you succeed in other areas of life, that already depends on your mazal. But nevertheless, you really have to be endowed with a very, very good character. Most people are not perfect. We all have certain imperfections of character, which leads us into trouble of all kind. So without learning, how are you going to know, how do you deal with anger management? Unless you go and learn how to deal with it. Can you do it on your own? No. You may not even admit you have this problem, like some people don't. No matter how much they are told, you have this problem, go get help. I have a problem, you have a problem. That's what they'll tell you. It's sad, it's really sad. So if a person does not see it in the book, he may not know how to go about it. So far, what we will see, B'ezrat Hashem, from this book, is that in life, because of the many things that happen throughout our lives, all kinds of ups and downs, whether they are tragedies, whether they are problems, marital problems, or all kinds, what we will see, B'ezrat Hashem, in the coming months when we learn the Sefer, is ech le'it'ashet, as we say in Hebrew. That's a very hard word to translate. How to come out of it. We are exposed to so much in this world. We see so much going on, and we are drunk in a sense with what we have absorbed. As ech litashet means how to become, what's the opposite of drunk?
Sober.
Sober. In a sense, maybe we can use the word sober. How to become sober?
Clear-minded.
Clear-minded. Where we're able to reflect a little bit better on the situation and hopefully do the right thing that is being asked of us to do. By learning Kohelet, that's what we will gain. Ech litashet, how to come out of this confusion, how to gain clarity and see things in the right perspective. So therefore, I have no doubt that when we go through the Sefer, we will accomplish that. And we will be able to acquire life, liberty, and pursuit of all those things that we spoke about in the beginning. So just to begin the Sefer, I'm not going to read to you from the Sefer, I just want to tell you a little bit about what the Sefer covers, what Kohelet covers. In Kohelet, even though it's 12 chapters, there are 5 principal points. 5 important points that he will stress. In other words, that there will be various pesukim, various verses that relate to those 5 important areas. And one is that the human being in this world is only here temporarily. Remember that. We all know that. No, we forget that. You're here only as a visitor. Remember that. Dor holech, he will tell us, v'dor ba ve'aretz le'olam omedet. That's one of the verses that he will tell us that basically makes this point. Generation comes, generation goes, the only thing that stays is this land. People go, people come, and people go. You're a visitor. Don't get overexcited about things if they don't go the way you would want them to be. You're visiting. Why make such a fuss about certain things? Famous story, mashal, that the Chafetz Chaim gives about this. There was once a guy who was a hotel or motel, Motel 6, one of those, motel. Following morning, he goes over to the manager with a list. He says, you know, I recommend that you change the ashtray. You move the coffee table to that side of the room. You change the curtains. You make another window on the other wall. And you do some major remodeling of their bathroom. So the manager looks at him and says, tell me, till when are you staying? Oh, I'm leaving tomorrow. What business do you have telling me how to run my place and what to do? You're only staying for one day. Who are you to tell me? You know, the Chafetz Chaim explains, we have all kinds of suggestions and ideas of how this world should be. But we're not here forever. We don't stick around. Who are we to tell Hashem how to run His world, what to do, what to fix? We're only here a couple of years, 70 years, 80 years, a little more. That's it. We're visitors. And because one is a visitor, he can't get caught up too much on things that are not important, things that are not his business. Certain things are none of our business. We don't have to get involved in. We're visitors. We're not here forever. And many people get caught up in all these kinds of trivialities. One of the things that a person will gain that will help him very, very much. Well, let me just give you one example. In learning Kohelet, after he realizes that we're only visiting here, what the purpose of life really is, what we're supposed to accomplish, one of the things where he can be helped is revenge. Do you know how many people want to take revenge? They're so upset. I'm going to get back at him. I'm going to get back. I'm going to get back to him. I'm going to show him. You know, some people have this problem. It's called revenge. The Torah tells us, lo tikom v'lo titor. Don't think about taking revenge and don't even bear a grudge. Which means you're not taking revenge, you're not acting on it, but you have it in your heart, it bothers you. Well, why not? Why shouldn't I show him? Well, if you learn Kohelet, you will realize that he's the boss and he takes care of his world just fine. Just leave it to him. You don't have to take actions. You don't have to always take the law into your hand. It's usually not necessary. But a person who does not learn these points will not think that way. I got to correct it. Correct yourself before you correct others. Right? Fix yourself before you try to fix the world. You may never even get to doing that in your short life of fixing yourself, and you want to fix the world. So this important point number one, is to remind us how temporary this world is. Number two, another area that he emphasizes in Kohelet, is don't waste your time, don't overdo real estate acquisition, purchasing, acquiring wealth, accumulating wealth. Don't overdo it, because it may not stay with you. You may make it today, you may lose it tomorrow. That's not what you're here for. Money is a means, not a goal. So don't overdo it. Don't overkill yourself for money. This is not what you're here for. The main acquisition that we should spend the most time on is kinyan ma'alot haruchaniot, is the acquisition of spiritual heights, of character development, character refinement. These are things worth our time. This is worth our investment. This is where we should put our efforts to acquire. Number three, in Kohelet he will point out the great value of Chokhmah versus Ksilut, the incredible difference between knowledge versus ignorance. You know, a lot of people just don't want to learn. They're happy the way they are. Don't bother me with this. It's okay. To know is not good. Sometimes to know is not good. You know, if you know certain things, maybe it's not too good to know. So he points out the advantage, the yitaron, the advantage of chokhmah over ksilut, over foolishness, over ignorance. Chokhmah is so important, he says, like the difference between day and night, between light and darkness. Those who do not know are like in darkness. And those that know, at least they have light. They may not still do the right thing, but there's tremendous difference between one who knows and one who does not know. So therefore he puts emphasis on knowledge, on learning, and becoming knowledgeable about life. Not about necessarily other things, but about life. What will he gain through this knowledge? First of all, he will come to learn a little bit more about his tachlit, what he's here for. Go down the street and take your average American citizen. Sir, do you know what you're doing here? Why are you alive? What is it for? What? What kind of a question is that? I mean, first of all, he'll be shocked by the question. Yeah. What do you live for? One lady in Israel was asked this question. Giveret, b'shilmat chaya. Le'enot mi'ashemesh, to enjoy the sun. That's the first thing that came to her mind, to enjoy the sun. What kind of an answer is that? That was her immediate reaction. Try it out one day. See what kind of reactions you get. What kind of an answer you will get from somebody who never thought about this question, never pondered the question. What do you live for? Yeah. So by learning, hopefully we will have a better idea of this very important question, what do we live for? Number 4, he will point out the importance of observing the mitzvot, of being God-fearing, having constant awareness of that. As the Declaration of Independence we just read, Divine Providence. Fear God, observe His mitzvot. And we're not just talking about the Jews here. This book really applies to everyone else too. The 7 Noahide laws for the non-Jewish world. Respect for the law. And fear of God. That is a very important part of our life. And number 5, that there is reward and punishment, which is a topic that we've covered in the 13 principles of our faith. Ha'olam hazeh lo hefker, this world is not hefker, free for all. You can do whatever you want and get away with it. No. He has his books, and if the books here are not well kept and maintained, he has his own set of books where everything is written down, and things happen eventually an eye for an eye, midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Nobody gets away with it. It appears to us sometimes that they do. Leave it to the boss. He'll take care of it. It's his world. He knows how to run it. And he'll catch up with the criminals, with the people who are bad. He has a reason why he doesn't do it now and he does it later. We don't know. Leave it to him. There's reward and punishment for all our actions. We're accountable for what we do. Life is a responsibility. It's not just a privilege. Of course, it's a beautiful privilege that we have to live a life, but it's a responsibility too. And therefore, remember that, yesh cheshbon, lemala. We will be accountable for what we did. in all of Sefer Kohelet, you will also see that he divides certain ideas in two. There's two parts to it. One part of some of his ideas is that everything in this world is in continuous motion. Continuous motion, as we said before, people come and people go. The planets are in continuous motion, the earth rotating on its axis. Everything is in continuous motion, including wealth and poverty. Person is wealthy today, maybe tomorrow he will be poor. Because things are in continuous motion. What is today will not necessarily be tomorrow. Because there's no nitzchiyut in this world. Nothing is eternal in this world. This ties in a little bit to the first concept that we are visitors here. So everything, look around, everything is in motion. Everything is moving. And therefore don't have too much confidence in your money, because that's in motion too. You may have $1 million today, but the dollar, the way it's being devaluated now, who knows what it's going to be worth tomorrow? You know, it takes more money to produce a penny than what the penny is worth. To produce that little penny, it takes more money than what it's worth. Yeah. So, everything is in motion, nothing is forever. So, that is one idea, one part of what he's trying to tell us. The second part of what he's trying to tell us is that even though you see that everything is in motion, and everything is a bunch of vanities, and that things don't last forever, don't be too negative about it either. You know, here I'm pointing to you all the silliness in the pursuit of these empty things that don't last forever. On the other hand, I tell you the second part is also very important. Don't be too negative that, well, then why do it? Why build a home? Why get married? Why have children? Right? Why do all these things? What for then? If all of this is anyway temporary, if all this money anyway can be taken away from me. You know, the Gemara has a very nice saying. We have to thank the Meshugaim. That's what the Gemara says. Thanks to the Meshugaim. You know what Meshugaim is? Thanks to the crazy people of this world who build all kinds of skyscrapers. Who builds skyscrapers? Meshugaim. That's what the Gemara says. Why? Because they're not, it's going to be around after they leave. They're building themselves a big mansion, they're building a big building, and before you know it, they have to leave. But they have these wild ideas. That's why they're called Meshugaim. They have wild ideas. What's the wild idea? Got to build, invest, sell. It's called in Hebrew legalgel, to roll things. I'm going to move things. I'm going to make this. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to sell that. These are the crazy people who do crazy things. But because of them, ha'olam nivna. Biglal ha'meshugaim, because of the crazy people, the world is being developed and built up. Some guy had a crazy idea. Right? The capital city today of Brazil is Brasilia. It used to be Rio de Janeiro. So there were some guys who said, you know what? We can't just all live by the coast. The majority of the population of Brazil lives by the coast, along coast. We have such a big country. It's bigger than the United States without Alaska, Brazil. Much bigger. And we have all this jungle and forest. It's unused. But people are around here. So how do we get people to move there? We're going to move the capital city, I think it's about 600 miles, inland. In this way, people will start moving. And a little bit, of course, it helped. There's all kinds of cities sprang around, and there's more and more cities in the interior, some even in the jungle. Not so much, but a little bit. But imagine, had somebody not thought of this idea, it wouldn't have happened at all. This brought jobs, this brought all kinds of things along with it. So you need somebody to think of some crazy idea, even though the idea is not a bad idea, but still it's an incredible idea to get things moving.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Does it mean it's good to be a Meshuga?
No, the rabbis are telling us that there's a benefit from the Meshugaim too. I don't think it's such a good thing to be a Meshuga, but the rabbis tell us, you see, we need them too. Hashem put them here in this world too. So we have people, sheyesh lam hamon meretz, who have tremendous amount of initiative and of courage and are motivated. Male meretz, will do all these kinds of things. And you have the other people who say, wait a minute, take it easy. Mañana, we'll do it tomorrow. All kinds of people, all kinds of attitudes. We need all of these people, right? Because the guys who push too hard need somebody to stop him. Don't overdo it. The guy who doesn't do anything, we need to push him, hey, come on, do something. So of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a balance of all kinds of people. Human nature, in all its forms and aspects, is good. But what's funny about this is that had it not been for this Meshugaim, the world would not be a developed place. They're the ones who have these crazy ideas to, look at the city. You know that if you were able to go back in a time clock to the year 1925, and you'd be here, you wouldn't see any homes. The majority of the homes that were built in this neighborhood only began with 1926. You had some buildings, you had some stores, but not homes. Empty fields, you had orchards. Same thing in Israel. Go to Israel, you don't have to go back that many years, even less. But you have people building, and you know how big the city is? Los Angeles? Incredible. If you look at a map, look at it from a plane, you look what's going on. When was all of this built? By Meshugaim. They Meshugaim, they built. But what can we do? I mean, that's the way the world runs. You have crazy people doing crazy things to build in the world. So therefore, the second part of Shlomo Melech is telling us is that even though we will see, B'ezrat Hashem, beginning next week, we'll talk about how there's so much hevel, so much vanities. Oh, everything's a bunch of vanities. Nevertheless, don't be negative about it. Because you can see in all of this turmoil, in all of the turmoil which we're in, you can see some things that Hashem did create that are really valuable indeed, and that are somewhat permanent and important. And what are they? Look at the sun. Look at the sun and look at the stars. Look at the world. Don't look at the small details. Look how these things are so important, so beneficial to the world. And they are pretty permanent. They've been around forever. They will be around. Look at these creations of Hashem and think about it. Maybe you should be like them. Maybe there's something to learn from them. In other words, just because other people will take your money doesn't mean that life is worthless. Just because you don't take it with you when you're buried, some people would like to take the money with them, I know. But just because you don't take it with you doesn't mean that life is worthless. There's a lot of things that are worthwhile in this world. You could be something very, very special and important. But man can be easily confused by what he sees and think negative. So Shlomo Melech's second part in telling us, what he's telling us is don't be overwhelmed by all the negative that there is as a result of what I'm pointing out to you. There's definitely some benefit. And what is the benefit? The benefit is like this. If life does have a purpose, if life does have meaning, then perhaps I can do something meaningful. And once somebody will learn Kohelet, he will see that what's very, very meaningful is ma'asim tovim, good deeds. And all these good deeds can only come about through learning and realizing the importance and the value of these things. In other words, man's contribution does not have to be through things that are meshugaim. Man's contribution can be through meaningful things. By looking at Hashem's creation, by looking at the sun and seeing how meaningful and important they are, he can also be a meaningful contributor. And in this way, Kohelet, B'ezrat Hashem, will convince us that there is a way that man can emulate the ways of his Creator and be like him, which is what rabbis tell us, which is really part of the tachlit, part of the purpose of life. Part of our mission of every human being is to emulate, li'idamot le'elokim, is to emulate the ways of God in character form. And just to finish up, we see this message in the word Adam. The word Adam, human being, consists of 3 letters. What's Adam? What does the word Adam mean? Adam consists of Aleph, Dalet, Mem. Aleph stands for Efer, Dam, Mara. the composition of the physical human being, ash or efer or adama, earth, dam, blood, mara, bile. That's all what man is. And all of that, of course, decomposes in the ground. That's adama. That's Adam. Adam, the essence of the physical Adam, is all that. But then there's a second part to Adam. And that is Adame le'elyon. As the Pasuk says, I need to strive during my life to, as much as possible, resemble my Maker. Resemble Elyon, those that are above. Who's above? That which is spiritual. That's where your neshama, your soul comes from. So throughout my life, I have to work on this, that even though I'm within a physical body, I definitely have it with me, as long as, of course, I have the right direction to be able to be something meaningful, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be proud of me. That's the other aspect of Adameh, of Adam, which is Adameh Le'elyon. The Pasuk says in Iyov, Ayir Pere Yulad Adam. When man comes down into this world, he's born as an Ayir Pere, a wild donkey. Ayir Pere. That's what human being is when he's born. But throughout his life, he has the ability, if he follows the proper path, of course, with the proper instruction and direction, to transform himself to be a true Adam. What we will see Bezat Hashem beginning next week when we start learning the Sefer, that Shlomo Melech will point out that amongst other things, this is closer to the Tachlit. This is closer to the meaning of life, what we're here for. There's obviously other ideas, other things that we need to accomplish here. I'm not minimizing, God forbid, Chas Shalom, that there's no need whatsoever to build this world physically. We're here for that too. We need an infrastructure. But that's not the more significant one. Yes, we're going to build the physical world, we're going to get married and have children and procreate, those are all physical, and populate the world. Fine. But remember, that's not the Ikar. We will be learning that the Ikar, the most important is Adameh Le'elyon, to resemble as much as possible our Maker. When we realize that that is the Tachlit, when we realize that that is the ultimate purpose, our perspective about life will be changed completely. And when our perspective about life will change, we will be able to have life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.